I identify as and am progressive. I talk about that. And so because of that fact, oftentimes I have people come to me and show me examples of silly, wacky progressives who take things too far type people and say, answer for this. You should be covering this on your show. And I have a great example of that type of story to get into in a second here. But one of the things I've talked about in the past with how I choose the stories and why I'll focus more on the radical right-wingers, even though I recognize there's some fringe people on the left that I very much disagree with, is because I care about what is impacting people's lives, and that heavily has to do with what affects or influences or has power. And so with the right wing, their fringe now has a whole lot of power and influences power a lot. Trump was the president and still commands a massive part of the conservative movement. Marjorie Taylor Greene is a congresswoman, has power within our governmental system, and all these different people we talk about have an effect on or directly have power themselves in significant ways. When I get sent examples of fringe left-wingers who admittedly I'll watch videos or I'll see tweets and I'll say, gosh, that seems really dumb. They don't represent any movement or any thing that influences power in a significant way and impacts the broader public's lives in a significant way. And that's why it's not that relevant to me, because yes, when you split a country into two sides, just two, in both sides, they're going to be less intelligent, more intelligent, less annoying, more annoying, all that type of stuff. And so you can't just both sides everything whenever one side has a fringe that is disproportionately influencing and affecting people's lives and threatening parts of our democratic institutions and all that in a way that matters a lot. And so the story I want to talk about to kind of get into this is something you've probably heard. The Stanford IT department released an elimination of harmful language initiative that caused a whole uproar on the right. Lots of people talking about how this is cancel culture, and they're going through and telling us what we can say, can't say. And pretty much what this document does is lay out a bunch of different words that people should stop using, but it seems like it's just for Stanford individuals within those putting out stuff on the website and their code, as you'll see in a second here. So it's just not even relevant to us, but we will discuss it so that we can have this conversation. And the part that caught my eye was the goal of the elimination of harmful language initiatives is to eliminate many forms of harmful language, including racist, violent, and biased language in Stanford websites and code. In Stanford websites and code. So if it's just to refine and perfect the language they use on their website and in their code, then that's completely irrelevant to me. And I recognize that in those types of places, you would want to be very precise with your language. So one of the examples in this document is the word crazy. They said, don't say crazy, instead say wild or something of that sort. In my mind, that's a little much if they were telling me not to say that. Because oftentimes just loosely, that's such a crazy story, or we're gonna have such a crazy time. And I think I'll continue to say that. But if I were formatting a website, I probably wouldn't put crazy on it. I would want to be a little bit more intellectual and professional in that type of setting. And that's why I don't even think this is as controversial as it's being made out to be at all. So it's a great example of how the right wing will use a small story that's very niche, blow it up out of proportion to fearmonger. So then Fox News can go on and say, look, Stanford's telling you, they won't read the part I read you, they're telling you you can't say crazy, they're telling you you can't say this and that, and it's cancel culture and it's terrible. And then we have all these people in our country who base their political beliefs off of being fearmonger too in this type of setting. But to be honest, let's just look at some of the stuff. There's plenty in here that absolutely is justified to not use. I think lots of words we should be more mindful about the effect they have on people, and some of those are highlighted. But you have ones like addicted. They're saying don't say addicted, instead say hooked or devoted. That to me is silly. I think saying addicted is perfectly fine. Crazy's on there. One of the ones that was fascinating was walk-in. If I were to have office hours, I have walk-in hours from this time to this time. They say don't say that, and say drop-in or open office. And that, if you were trying to alter broader society's language, wouldn't make much sense to me, because you can use terms like that. I don't think they affect people that much. But Another one that got a lot of attention was American. Instead, say US citizen. But I want to remind you one more time that this is a guide for their website, for their code. And I recognize why you would want to be perfect in those settings. So this actually doesn't even surprise me that much. It makes a whole lot of sense. But it's being told to people as a story of the left wants you to stop saying American. That's what the headline is from a right-wing publication. The left is telling you, through Stanford, to not use the word crazy or walk-in, when it doesn't seem to be that at all. It just seems to be something they're improving their own outward-facing communication internally. And so, great example, great case study of how these types of fear-mongering campaigns are done. And then also, it reminds me of something I want to make sure you guys are aware of, which is, it is very important you don't base your own political ideology around a negative reaction to somebody else, if that makes sense. So in certain settings, you do want to react politically to other political ideologies. Of course, that's a lot of politics. But if you root your own political beliefs in a negative reaction to somebody else, and because they associate with other political views, you go the opposite direction, you're going to be completely confused and not actually rooted in some broader or more important, significant truth. So, as an example, if I came across someone who called themselves a liberal but was a jerk and super aggravating on Twitter, it to me would not be logical to then say, awesome, I'm a right-winger, because they said they're liberal, I hate them, now I'm a right-winger. Because you're not actually tapping into or subscribing to the right-wing ideology, you're just trying to react in the opposite direction to someone else's ideology. So instead, you want to go through and say, what do I actually believe? And then let me format my political beliefs around that. For me, just as a bunch of examples, universal health care, I think that's absolutely something we should have in the United States. That would put me in a progressive box. I think all of these different fights in a bunch of different areas for a more equal and just society, whether it's across racial lines or sexual orientation lines or all these different categories, criminal justice, trying to increase working people's wages, fighting for unions, all these things make me understand myself to be progressive. So if I interact with someone who's annoying, who's a progressive, or takes an issue too far, who's progressive, I'm not going to launch myself in the other direction because I'm rooted. My foundation is so much more stable than that, and that can never affect me in that type of way. So this actual example, as I'll repeat one more time, doesn't seem to be something that's telling you what to say. They're just refining their own language, and they can do that. If it was telling us what to say, I would go, you're taking it too far. This is a little much. Some of these words aren't offensive. Some of them are, and I understand why we're trying to get those on the way out. Some of them aren't, and we should loosen up a little bit. But this by no means should inform you to be a part of a political side that once they get you over there by the fear-mongering about stories like this and the misrepresentations of stories like this, then what they're fighting for is not good at all. And we've seen the deterioration of our democratic process through the right-wing movement that exists right now and all these other things that have been so significant. So hopefully that kind of makes sense why I wanted to focus on this. And it's all very interesting. So let me know what you think. Luke P. Beasley on Twitter, or drop a comment in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before any of the clips are uploaded to YouTube, plus get a full extra show every single Saturday, you can do so by going to patreon.com/Luke Beasley. That's patreon.com/Luke Beasley, and there's a link in the description.